like to welcome in now Anthony Cabassa, an independent journalist there in LA. Anthony, thank you so much for giving us some of your time. From your perspective, what is the situation right now in LA? Are the president's actions sending in the National Guard troops, is that a deterrent, do you think, to these protesters?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. There's a lot of information out there right now on what exactly has been happening and unfolding here in Los Angeles over the course of the weekend. There are some statements out there that the protests basically escalated ever since President Trump signed a memorandum activating 2,000 National Guardsmen. From my point of view, from my reporting on the ground, the tensions were already pretty high when there was word that ICE was planning on doing raids beginning Friday of last week. What I witnessed was the federal building, the immigration detention center there. There was protesters gathering right outside where immigrants were being held, and there was DHS police there present and agents that were confronted by these protesters. So even before the national memorandum was signed with the National Guard, there was already an escalation between the protesters and DHS agents, and there was already some conflict there and acts of violence toward the DHS agents. So the national memorandum that was signed was actually a response to Friday when everything actually began.
And so, you mentioned it right there. We're talking about these raids happening, and we are, sources are telling us that, more raids are happening today, happening essentially as we speak. Is there a fear, Anthony, that things will ramp up again as the day progresses, as there are potentially more raids, and then as night falls?
Oh, absolutely. I think that what we are seeing right now in Los Angeles unfold is basically becoming a ground zero for the federal government versus state and city government. Obviously, you have elected officials, Democrats, saying that they want to be assured that the immigrant community is safe, but then you have the federal government trying to perform these ICE raids and perform their jobs to target these very violent individuals that the ICE and DHS have been highlighting. Like, look, here's the rap sheets. These aren't just random people we're coming after. These are violent criminals that are here legally and that need to be deported. And so I can definitely see a scenario where tensions continue to escalate, especially now with SEIU leader Huerta that has been detained, and he has his arraignment today. From what I'm hearing, there are scheduled protests today as well and into the week. And I think that the memorandum that was signed by President Trump activating the 2,000 National Guardsmen, that is a 60-day order. So as long as there's National Guard here, I can see the escalation continue to ramp up. Maybe not so much throughout the week, but I definitely expect it to ramp back up Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, which is when most people are off and are able to attend these protests.
Yeah, so let's talk about that, Anthony. The president calling in these 2,000 National Guard troops in a capacity that has not been done in some 60 years. What is the reaction to people there in California who are not participating in the protests, just everyday Californians? We know this is something the governor is against. And what is the thought of, what potentially happens next?
Yeah, that's a good question. I actually conducted a quick poll on my Instagram account. I have about 190,000 followers there. And I have a lot of people that range from, the left all the way to the right, conservative, liberal, that follow me because of my reporting, independent reporting here in Los Angeles for close to 8 years now. And a little bit over 85% agreed that we need the National Guard here to make sure that we don't have a repeat of the a couple of years ago in the protests here in Los Angeles. People don't want to see a repeat of that. I was talking to business owners that were boarding up their shops. They say, they basically have PTSD and flashbacks of what happened just a couple of years ago during the height of the George Floyd protests that were happening across LA County. And so I think the overwhelming response is people are okay with it so long as, that their boundaries, are set and that it's not a federal government overreach from what they say. They want to make sure that LA is safe. I saw a lot of kids at these protests that unfortunately were maced and that were hit with tear gas. My number one recommendation for anyone planning to attend protests is please don't bring your kids. Things can go sour really, really quick. All it takes is one agitator to throw something at police to kind of set things off. And so I'm praying it doesn't escalate to that again. But I think that people are looking to the state government and especially LA Mayor Bass and local law enforcement to make sure that it does not escalate to the point where the National Guard really has to be implemented to kind of take control of the situation.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.